Welcome to the Gifts for Glory podcast, where we celebrate and promote men and women using their gifts for God's glory. Know someone who is making an impact for God's kingdom using their gifts, talents, and passions? We'd love to meet them. Send us an email at podcast@giftsforglory.com. That's podcast@gifts4glory.com. And now here is our host, Dave Ebert.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're tuning in, whether you're watching live on Facebook, YouTube, or you're catching us on the Creative Motion Network. Right alongside me is, of course, is Trooper. He's hanging off in the back of the couch. So at least we got Trooper with us, and we've got you. So thank you so much for being a part of the show. Feel free to leave a comment if you're watching live. We'd love to interact with you as the show goes on. And want to thank everybody that was so supportive of the RFK Thanks for Giving Comedy Night we had this past Saturday. Comedy Night in Illinois, in Lockport. We had a blast. We raised over $800 for Royal Family Kids Camp to help support kids going to a camp. And these are for foster kids that don't normally get a chance to be treated like royalty. And that's what Royal Family Kids does. And I'm proud to be a part of the organization. Excited to raise money for them. So I want to thank everybody watching that was supportive of our fundraiser event. And there's still plenty of time to get involved. If you're in the Illinois area and you'd like to serve, we're always looking for volunteers to help make these camps amazing for our awesome foster kids. So get in contact with me, and I'd love to tell you more about Royal Family Kids Camp. It's coming up in July in the Chicagoland area, but there are Royal Family Kids Camps all over America and even overseas. So if you're wanting to get involved and service some kids that really need adults who can show them the love of Jesus, RFKC is the way to go. Get in contact with me. I'd love to share those details with you. Now, as we get into our show tonight, of course, we always begin with our Devotions with Dave segment. And tonight's Devotion with Dave segment comes from Mark 9:42. Mark 9:42 says, "But if you cause one of these little ones who trust in me to fall into sin." Now, to preface this, Jesus is sitting there talking to his disciples. He's actually got a child with him, and he's showing this point. "But if you cause one of these little ones who trust in me to fall into sin, it would be better for you to be thrown into the sea with a large millstone hung around your neck." And that sounds harsh, but it's so important to realize that as Christians, we have a duty to care for and protect those, especially younger believers, children, or people who are new to faith. But this verse really stuck out to me this week, because just thinking, in October, we wrapped up Pastor Appreciation Month. But sometimes we appreciate the pastor, but we forget that just because the children are the sons and daughters of pastors, it seems like we hold them to a different standard. And I can just see the hurt that sometimes happens when we hold the preacher's kids to a higher standard. We cause that church hurt, and many times you see that these preacher's kids end up rebelling, and that's why this verse stuck out to me, is that we appreciate the pastor, we honor them, and rightfully so, and even their wives or their husbands. We honor the spouses, but then we sometimes forget about the kids. The kids were born into it. They didn't ask, they didn't volunteer. They're the kids. So when we appreciate our pastors, let's also appreciate the preacher's kids. They're carrying a burden that wasn't theirs. They were born into it. And I just think about this verse of, if you cause one of the little ones to stumble, if you hold a preacher's kid to a higher standard than even your own children, you could potentially cause a stumble. And then that's why this verse stuck out to me, of Mark 9:42, of, it'd be better if you thrown into a sea with a millstone around your neck than to cause a little one to stumble. So that is my Devotion with Dave. Just a little admonishment, a little encouragement to love on the pastor's kids and realize that at the root of it, they're kids. And we shouldn't hold them to any higher standard than we hold to ourselves or to our own kids. So that was my Devotions with Dave segment. A couple weeks ago, we had the pleasure of having Robert Alaniz on to discuss his movies and the newest release, Honest to God. And we're going to have the lead actor, Burke Sage, coming up in just a moment. But I want to play for you the trailer, because if you're in the Chicagoland area, there's an opportunity to see the film in theaters coming up this Thursday. So be sure to check out honesttogodfilm.com and look for this movie showing at a theater near you.
Daniel Adams.
Daniel, I was wondering, could you help Pretzel? He has to poopy.
Sorry.
Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling.
There's a good chance you have a terminal illness that could result in death in a short period of time.
This is kind of like the day before a colonoscopy.
You're gonna die?
Except this time, we won't be waking up afterwards to see if they found something.
I think it's important that you tell Rebecca as soon as possible, while she still has a few good years left in her.
Huh?
Mormons! How cool!
I'm Elder Jones. I'm Elder Wallace.
And you guys look so young. How cute!
Chloe, they're people, not puppies.
I don't want to die. I'm only in my 50s, for God's sake. For your sake. I promise you,
I will change.
Good morning, my love.
Good to see you eating at the table, son.
My treat today.
Why?
Well, it's been a while since I've treated, so,
Whoa, you've never treated.
I don't know. He's been acting strange ever since he went to see that Dr. Haja.
Sure did. It is.
Am I losing my mind? Or did I just see you hand a baggie of dog poop to Miss Tucker?
Dr. Hajan has been under investigation since the closing of his place of practice in Los Angeles last month for allegedly posing as a doctor, seeing patients, diagnosing them with terminal cancer, and then charging them for tests that were never performed.
Yes!
So from Soul Productions, that's Honest to God. You can find the Facebook page at HTG The Movie. Find out details about where you can find it if you can't make this Thursday's showing. But without further ado, let me bring on our guest at this time, Burke Sage. Burke, welcome to the Gifts for Glory podcast. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm laughing as I'm watching that. I'm reliving all of those scenes over again watching that. So great to be here. Thanks, Dave.
And for an actor, sometimes you don't get to appreciate it in the moment of what it's going to look like because you do so many takes. There's so many start and stops that it takes until the trailer comes out. You realize, oh wow, this is actually going to be fun.
Well, yeah, you see how pieces connect, and even though I had a larger role, there were still a lot of components that are like, I don't know where 1 and 2 fit together. And so it's fun. It's fun to see that finished product and what everybody else was doing to pull all those things together.
Yeah. And it looks like it's going to be absolutely hilarious. You've got everyone recognizes the face of the soup Nazi from Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah.
He's playing the crooked, corrupt, weird doctor
right.
Who gives you a diagnosis that kind of changes the course or your character, obviously, because Burke is still on a different plane. But
right.
So tell us as much as you can about the film without giving away spoilers.
Yeah, no, sure, you bet. Well, my character, Daniel, he is he is a businessman. He has an insurance company, and good family man, loves his family. Sees kids as kind of these, they don't know enough to come out of the rain sometimes, a little bit cynical, and a little short-sighted in terms of where his faith really is at, and how he relates to people. I think he's more into if there's an advantage for me to know you, then we'll connect. Everything is kind of what helps me. But yeah, he has a diagnosis, and at the time, obviously, he doesn't know that this doctor is a phony, and it just puts him on a path of, oh boy, this is not good, and he falls into his business mode, which his default is negotiate. Let's figure out how I can not have this happen. And so he makes a bunch of promises to God. If you heal me, I'm going to do all of these wonderful things. And, this is going to be our deal. And he sets out to do all of that. And then come to find out things weren't what he expected. And then it's the challenge. Are you going to still honor what you promised to God or not? And without getting too much into detail, he struggles a little bit with that. And some unfortunate events later in the film really bring things back full circle to him. And it ultimately changes his heart and in his life and in the direction of his life. So it ends on a good note, but it took some stumbling and some tragedy to get him there.
Yeah. So would you say that this it is a comedy, but there's also a message to it?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's definitely got its comedic elements, and you saw in the trailer some of those. But there's a lot of emotion in it too. I mean, it's up and down. The comedy is placed in good spots, but there's definitely a message, and everybody takes something different away, I think, from this. A lot of people kind of come away and say, family's important. Make sure that your relationships are solid. And, when you're on your deathbed, you don't wish you worked more or, were gone more or, so I think that's a big part of it. And for me too, is just your faith. where is your faith? Do you have faith? It kind of brings that question, where am I really at? What am I really believing? Or is it superficial? So there's a lot of those kinds of questions that kind of get stirred up. And there's some really great relationships in the film that help bring those points to light.
And I think one of the important questions that whether or not it fully answers it or not is it forces you to ask yourself, am I faithful only because I really need it, or am I faithful because I believe in God?
Right.
And that seems like the question that he has to really wrestle with.
Yeah. And his wife is really the one that has the faith in the family. And I think I said this talking to somebody before, that he's almost, his faith is vicariously through his wife. He kind of thinks that, well, I'm with her, and so I'm good because we live in a where there's faith, and my wife kind of handles that part of the deal because she's good at it. So I'll just kind of be the tag along and take part in the benefit program that she's getting.
Yeah, she's got the insurance plan and you're along for the ride.
That's right.
But that's not how it works.
Yeah, I'm one of her covered dependents.
Yeah. So how long have you been acting? Because we mentioned we were talking before we went on the air that this isn't your full-time career. You've got a career. So at what point did you step into doing acting, and how long have you been doing it?
Yeah, I've been in kind of the business world myself, so it's kind of funny that I played a businessman. And I still have this job. It's been perfect. For about 21 years, I work as a sales business development rep for a company here in Michigan. And it's allowed me so much flexibility that I've been able to do these types of things. But about 7 years ago, we were headed to church one day, and my wife saw a billboard along the highway, and it was promoting AMTC, Actors, Models, and Talent for Christ, which I had no idea what that was. And it just, talked about preparing, people of faith for the entertainment industry, basically. And my wife said, up to my son, who at the time was, I think, 16 or so, he's a decent looking guy. Hi, honey, maybe you could get into some modeling or something like that. And of course, like any teenager, one of those kinds of things. Right. And then she turned to me and said, well, honey, what about you? I mean, I think you'd be great at doing something like that. And I tell you, it was one of those moments where it was like the wife that was next to me was actually the Holy Spirit talking, because I felt that like nudge, like, hey, you should probably check into that kind of a thing. And I said, okay, I will. And I sang a little bit. I sang in church. I played trumpet. I've done some sketching, so I've had kind of those creative type of gifts and tendencies, but I never really was interested in acting. I never had any inclining. I did a couple of little things when I was in school, but I decided to go to this AMTC and try it out, and I went through the whole program, which, if you're looking to get started in the industry, Carrie Lewis has a program that she still has. It's called Shine by Carrie Lewis. And there's some other new things coming out with Christian casting. Laura May's got some things for people that are, believers that want to get into the industry. They're great because they prime you for it. They help you learn about the industry, how to get into it with headshots and resumes and, training, all those kinds of things. But there's a foundation of your faith and how you can bring that light into those arenas, but to do it in a way where you're much more discerning of pitfalls and, those kinds of things. So you do it right. And so you don't slip and fall off the wagon, so to speak. But anyway, so I went through that about 7 years ago. And, over the last 7 years now, I've progressively done more and more and more, done a dozen plus films, lots of commercials, photo shoots and those kinds of things. And I'm absolutely loving it.
And you've got another big project that's I think in post-production now that's coming out soon. Is that right?
Yeah, the 211 home, and maybe that's what you were there. I did that in Oregon last year. Another, in the midst of COVID, we managed to still film a feature, and that is completed. It's in the kind of the festival circuit, winning all sorts of awards. So that's awesome. Yeah. That one will be, I think, PureFlix, and there may be some additional channels and things that'll be coming pretty soon. It might even be this month or at some point. So I'll have more information on that. And then I just wrapped up for this year for The Text, which was filming in Indiana. I had kind of a main supporting role on that as well. well. We'll be wrapping that up in the spring with the last couple scenes. So yeah, it's been a good year.
So I think it was the text was the one I was referring to, because I saw that you were working on that.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that film.
Sure.
Or as much as you can without like spoiling. And
yeah, no, that's it's a good film. It kind of hinges around the issues of texting and driving, but it's really about two families who are very close. One has a son, one has a daughter, who are, they're trying to match make a little bit. And there's a tragedy that's surrounding a texting issue, and it puts the families into a kind of a bitter battle with each other, because one family is very much into never text and drive and all of these kinds of things, and the other family is very much into their phones and texting all the time. And so it's a big story of finding forgiveness, working through those struggles. It's not pretty in a lot of the scenes, but it's one of those things of just fighting through and having mercy and finding forgiveness and repairing relationships and reconciliation. But it's kind of all set on the issue of texting and driving. That's what kind of drives the.
So until text comes out, and then 211 that you mentioned a moment ago come out. What can people see you in that's currently out? I know that you've got a few projects that have been out.
Yeah. There's some things. had some television things, but it was a pilot series that we did about 2 years ago on Investigation Discovery ID Network. Called Lone Star Justice. You can probably see that on some reruns. But I was a lead detective in a 6-episode series, and that was a lot of fun. Was down in Texas filming that. I'm trying to think. There's a few other things that we've had. Trying to think of what streaming channels and things they're on. I might have to look those up. I don't want to say and be mistaken and start promoting something that's not on a certain channel. But these are the big ones that I've had, these last 3 that I just mentioned, that are the most recent, that'll still be available.
So what is your process for choosing a project when you go out there? Because, as a Christian, you want to honor God with your talents, right. But not every Christian actor can work exclusively on Christian projects, because there's just not that many.
Right. Yeah. You have to have boundaries. I mean, that's an important part, is that you have to establish boundaries for what you will and won't do, and you got to pray through it. I mean, there are certain things that I've been part of that weren't Christian, per se. There was not a faith message necessarily. Some of them had a little bit of a redemptive message, and some of them didn't. But with those, I pray about it. I get some peace. Obviously, the role that I take, if it's going to be a bunch of, swearing or, my slogan or whatever is no kissing, no cussing. So I don't want to get into romantic type scenes where there's going to be, especially nudity or anything like that. And I don't want to be somebody that's going to be cussing all the time. Those are just boundaries that I won't do, period. So it's a lot of just prayer and finding where there's some peace in it. And, I've kind of decided that, God's got whatever he wants for me. I'm going to do my part to prepare. I'll pray about it. And if I get a role, that means there's going to be something for me that he has from somebody else for me, or he's got something for me to pass on to somebody, on set or during an audition. And if none of that happens, then obviously there wasn't something that he needed, for me to do or be part of. So.
Are you ever going to be in that place where, like, you'll do the Kirk Cameron thing of, if your character has to kiss, you have your wife do the walk on and be the body double?
That would be great. I would love to kiss my wife on camera.
Would she be for it?
She probably would do that. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Well, unless the actress was like 5'10" and blonde. My wife's like 5'2" brunette, so she could stand on a apple box. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, for those listening, we're with Burke Sage. You can visit his website, burkesage.com. BURKESAGE.com. And the links are also in the show notes of the podcast, whether you're watching or listening. So Burke, my favorite part of the show, and like the most important part to me, is the testimony. We mentioned you're a Christian actor. How did you find Christ? Was it were you in a Christian home and it just came naturally, or was it a longer journey? What was your journey?
Yep, I had one of those longer journeys. my wife was one of those that grew up in a Christian home and, found Christ at an early age. And I'm thankful for that. There were a lot of moving parts to mine. When I was younger, we did go to church a little bit when I was like in junior high school. Mm-hmm. But when I went, it was a hangout. I did it. It was fun. I learned some things, but it was still superficial. There was really no life change, And I was always a good kid though. I didn't get into trouble. I was always a nice kid, got along with people. So I was a good guy. Mm-hmm. And so going to church, it was just, I lived that life. I was just a good guy who believed in that Jesus was God's son. But that was just, it was all in my head kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And then I went kind of south during, after I got out of high school and in college, started drinking, and I was a big partier. Just life totally went the wrong way for me. I still was a nice guy and everything, but I partied too much. And I didn't know at the time how deep it was, but my family has a lot of alcoholism in it. Mm-hmm. A lot of family members struggle with that kind of stuff. And so I was starting to run down that same path. Didn't know it at the time. Out of school, college, I connected with an old high school friend who was a believer. And that was a big seed planting period for my life. Just being around her, she never preached at me. It was just the way she lived her life. She talked about her faith sometimes, and it was just everyday conversation. And we hung out. We kind of dated a little bit, and that really set the tone for where I headed. I ended up we kind of split up. I got married, and neither of us were very faithful to each other. I continued to drink a lot and those kinds of things. Not a good situation there. Still a nice guy, worked hard, had a good job, all of those kinds of things. And then I had started listening to Christian music, also dating that girl, and she kind of and that was a God thing. He just kind of started, keeping me tuning into these Christian stations, and it was a battle. Those years were a big battle for me because my wife at the time, she left, and we separated and got divorced. During that time is when I really had a huge battle, and it was not, boy, I'm really upset about my life not being so great because I'm going through this, divorce kind of a thing. It was, I don't get this whole faith thing. Why am I struggling? I'm listening to Christian music and there's something about it, and then I'm turning it off, and then I'm drinking, and then it was like this back and forth kind of a thing. And then January 6th of 1996, you always know when you get a date, there's something important.
Yeah.
I had gone and worked out and was just thinking about everything and just getting kind of upset and emotional. And I came home and was in my garage listening to Point of Grace, Great Divide.
Oh, yeah.
And I just started bawling my eyes out because I was just so tired. I hated, where things were going with my life. And I was so sick of, I met this girl who, loved Jesus, and I just didn't know, is it real? Is it not? It was this huge tumultuous evening, and I basically drew the line in the sand with God, which you can't do, but I did that. I was just bawling. I'm yelling. I'm just so sick and tired of not knowing. I think this and I hear this, but why is this? And I just need to know that you're real. And went through this whole, I'm mad because you prove yourself now kind of a thing. And I still can't explain what happened. I still have no real words. Something stopped me from crying. I stopped like as if somebody just flipped a light switch. And if you've ever been somewhere where somebody walks in the room and how they change the atmosphere when so and so came in, how it kind of felt like that. But it was like this peace, this joy. Something happened. I don't know what happened, but right at that time I was just crying my eyes out, and it stopped immediately. And then all of a sudden that just kind of washed over me, and it was like he just said, okay, here I am. And it was like he was right there. showing himself and revealing himself, kind of a thing. And it was like my pastor at the time, or shortly thereafter, he said the good way to describe it is that your want tour changes when you get that new life inside of you. What you want, that changes. And it was like as if everything just turned, and all of that was gone. All of that anger and frustration was gone. I lost every inkling of drinking immediately.
Wow.
Totally lost all of that. And it wasn't a decision, I should probably stop drinking now. I just had no desire. And I knew that I had no desire, and I was laughing at myself thinking, what in the world is going on? And the first thing I wanted to do, I got to find a church. I got to find some people to connect with. I mean, this is all happening, and that was never, on the radar for me.
Right.
And so he totally changed everything inside of me. So I'm still a nice guy,
Yeah.
but my life is different.
Right.
Who I am is different now. And for me, I think there's a huge mission field, because there's a lot of people out there that are really good people, that lead good lives, that go to church, all of that kind of stuff, but they've missed the life.
Yeah.
They're one step short, and so I connect with people that are kind of like that, and share those stories, and, just anybody who does this differently for everybody. Not everybody that's, has alcohol problems or whatever. He doesn't magically deliver them. He doesn't take that away with everybody. He knew that Burke needed that gone so that I could walk with him the right way. Somebody else, something else he took away, and then he walked with them through drinking. I have my own other issues that I'm still working through. But that's amazing to me that he walks with everybody with a very specific call and a walk with them. Everybody's got a different walk with him. Anyway.
So how far back was that moment where you're weeping, you're crying, and then he shows up? How long ago was that?
26 years ago.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. So I don't want to give, well, that gives you away my age. I was 26 when that happened. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully no casting directors are watching so they can add the two together. But
that's right. Yeah. Play 40 to 55 now. But it's, and I constantly learn stuff every day, and now I'm in a place where I'm praying and asking for him to show me some of those subtle things that are causing me to not be where, ultimately where he wants me. It talks about the word being active and powerful, dividing a soul. The last part of that verse talks about discerning of the intentions of the heart.
Yeah.
And so I'm really kind of in that place now. It's like, I don't want even the subtle stuff messing me up.
Right.
I'm still stumbling, but I want those revealed so that I can get away from that stuff. So,
and that's something that a lot of Christians are afraid of that continual refining. They want I'm saved, the light is turned on, and let's just live.
Yeah.
But and it takes a humble heart wanting to, all right, God, continue to prune, continue to trim, continue to boil the metal to refine it and get those impurities out.
The closer you get, the hotter it gets too. Sometimes, in a good way, but it's always and that's the other thing, his discipline and his care, it's always in love. So I never come at that, thinking, oh gosh, I'm a worm. Everything he does is as a loving father, and so I have to remember that when it's kind of one of those, hey, you know what, better than that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So
it's been 26 years. That means that there was a 19-year span of life between that and the time that you felt like the Holy Spirit gave the elbow to the ribs and said, you need to pursue AMTC.
I wasn't ready. That's plain and simple. I wasn't ready yet. He still had things to do. And when the time was right, it happened. So,
and for those that maybe don't understand that kind of a journey, that 19 years wasn't just a waste or wasn't just a holding pattern. You filled it with life, and you had other things that God had you doing during that time.
Yep, you betcha. And I, for a while, I actually had a little business of my own. I bought and this was right after right after I got saved and stuff, trying to find maybe a new path for life and that kind of stuff. Well, I ended up buying a little ice cream parlor that had kind of been run into the ground and started adding coffees and stuff. And I had a little business for about 3.5, 4 years, really struggled. I mean, it was an effort to keep that going. And then I got engaged to my now amazing, wonderful wife of almost 24 years. I spent so much quiet time at that shop. I worked like 100 hours a week. It was just unbelievable because I was there for, 6 in the morning serving coffee until 9, 10 o'clock at night, all the time. But there was so much downtime. I felt like Paul when he, kicked off his horse and then he spent 3 years kind of on his own learning. I essentially had that same kind of experience where all I did was read. I outlined the entire New Testament. All I did was read and pray in all my downtime for years. And so for me, that was kind of just some growing time for me. And then, I was able to be a blessing to some people around, from the neighborhood and, some kids that worked for me. And so all of those things played into where I'm at now. And there was no bad time that I would change because it played into everything that's who I am now.
So we fast forward to 7 years ago when you pursued AMTC. What was your first paid acting gig once you started pursuing it?
Oh gosh. It was, as far as acting, I did a few local, we have a college, Compass College of Cinematic Arts in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Okay. And I did some films with them. That wasn't paid, but that got me a little bit of experience on set. Honestly, the first paying things I did were some local print ads and local commercials or industrial video, types of things just around locally. And because that was the advice that I had from meeting with some casting directors and agencies at the AMTC, the Shine conference, because I didn't have any experience. They said, you know what, best thing for you to do is just find a couple of local places, try to get at least some experience, get on the set so you know how it works. And so that was probably the first year or so. I did a lot of that sort of thing. And then I did a short, it was a full feature called Who Will Move the Stone. That was actually a faith-based film out of Detroit. And that was really one of the first. I played a pastor, but I played a pastor that you wouldn't really connect with because he was kind of a prosperity gospel. I was not the right version of a pastor, but that was a great experience because that really got me connected to some people of faith in that industry and kind of helped me a little bit, get my feet wet. But that was fun. Really enjoyed that.
Has there been a moment or a role where you felt like that was God confirming everything you've been pursuing?
Oh boy. I think it's little pieces, I think, throughout the film. And honestly, it's not, a lot of it has been not because of the film itself, like the role, but a lot of it has been because of maybe some of the people that I've worked with. I'll be on set or something and there'll be a conversation or a series of conversations that I'll have with another cast member or crew or whatever. That was really the confirmation. It was like, I needed you to share with that person about whatever. Had nothing to do with my role, but I needed to be part of that so that I could talk to them or vice versa. So that's really kind of how I see that confirmation is not just did I get the role or didn't I? It's what happened, what gained, spiritually. Was there something that I learned or that I was able to speak into somebody's life, on set? So that for me is the confirmation.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got the film Honest to God. It's out. It's had a couple of screenings already, but the next screening is coming up Thursday, the 11th.
Yep.
And you can find details on that at honesttogodmovie.com or at HTG the movie. So was this your first project working with Robert, or have you worked with him previously?
Yeah, it was. Yep. I had auditioned actually for a different film for him a couple of years ago now. I believe it was The Heavens to Betsy 2. Okay. And obviously didn't get a role, but at least got in front of him, and then auditioned for this film. And here's another God thing. The funny story is that I actually auditioned for a very small day player role as a pastor. And so auditioned for that, and I got that role. That I was initially awarded that role, and it was just a couple of lines at the end of the movie. It was great. I'm like, oh, cool. I got connected, with kind of the Chicago market, and first time with Robert, all excited. And then kind of the long and short is that with COVID and all these things that happened, there were a lot of things that got mixed up. People, couldn't commit or stay committed because of the changing with schedules. And the lead actor who was actually cast for Daniel couldn't stay committed. And so Robert approached me and just said, I want to throw something by you. And so multiple conversations, Zoom meetings, and read-throughs of the script and all of that. He said, if you're able to commit to it, we'd like you to take on that role instead. So it went from just this little tiny role. Great, I get to connect with a new writer and director to, oh, I got to shoulder this lead role now. I hope I do good.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. And Robert spoke very highly of you during our interview, and the movie looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. For those that are in the Chicagoland area, you can get tickets at the website honesttogodmovie.com, and the show is going to be November 11th. That's this Thursday. Yep. And that's going to be showtime of 7:10 p.m. So don't get there at 7:11. Get there at 7:10.
Right.
At the Landmark Theaters on 2nd Street, and that's in Highland Park, Illinois. Again, those details at honesttogodmovie.com. And for anybody that may have joined us late, just give them like the elevator pitch of what the movie is and what they're going to get out of it.
Sure. So honest to God, story about a man named Daniel who, good family guy, shallow of faith, I'll say, is diagnosed with a terminal illness. And it's kind of his story of making promises to God. If he'd be healed, he's going to do all of these wonderful things. And then finds out that the doctor was actually a fake. And it's really the story of him fighting that battle. Do I continue on, making all these promises? Do I continue on and try to make all of them happen? Or do I kind of fall back and just go back to the way I was before? And it takes some unfortunate events towards the end of the movie for him to come full circle and realize that there's a lot more to life than just making deals with God and having people be kind of using people instead of loving people. But it's a great story. You'll laugh, you might cry. There's definitely some emotional scenes in there as well. It'll be a little bit of an emotional roller coaster, but it'll be fun.
Good. And again, that's this Thursday, the 11th at Landmark Theaters in Highland Park. Get your ticket now at honesttogodmovie.com. And Burke, I did warn you before we came on that we do have two final segments.
Yeah.
One is called The Interrogation, 7 random questions that wouldn't have otherwise fit. And then I'll ask you your wise counsel at the end. Or I guess we could say I'll be asking for your sage advice.
Sage advice.
That's never come across.
That had to come. I get that all the time. Yeah.
All right. So let's dive into the interrogation. All right, first question. What do you do to recharge?
Well, I actually like quiet time. I love being in the outdoors. I'll take walks. I'll sit out at our house on the back deck and I'll read. I love campfires. That's a huge recharging for me. I'm actually kind of an introvert. I mean, I love people. I love interacting, but I need my space and my time. So quiet times outside, campfires, absolutely love it.
Absolutely. Question number 2. What's your favorite genre of film or TV to watch?
Oh boy, kind of comes and goes. With kids, we've been hooked on all the superhero movies, but that's not so much anymore. I like a good action drama, kind of suspense action type films. Yeah.
All right. Question number 3. Other than Jesus, from who in the Bible have you learned the most?
Probably 2 people, probably Peter and then King David. Just because I think they represent people. If you really look at their stories, they really represent us in so many ways.
Yeah.
For me, Peter, the guy that was, he was strong and did it, but then boy, you put him under the fire. It was like, who is he? Who is he? We deny a lot. But then how his life changed One's the Holy Spirit. So kind of the two men.
Right.
But King David, I love because he was so real. The Psalms are amazing. He was after God's heart. He stumbled. He was a broken guy. He was real. He was human. And I love that part of him, is that we can be real. We don't have to be super saints. God's still, moving us towards, what he has for us. But we just need to be pursuing him. He'll take care of it.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I always tell, or when I'm talking about the Bible and, trying to speak up in terms of apologetics, if the Bible was made up, why are all the main characters other than Jesus so broken and so prone to failure?
Right.
If the Bible were made up, why not gloss it up a little bit? Why not say, hey, the Israelites walked straight to the promised land, no problem whatsoever.
Right.
God opened the Red Sea, no problems.
No complaints.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is just, a huge proof of the accuracy of the Bible.
Yeah.
So the next question, number 4, what would you most like to do over?
Oh boy.
Now, this can be something that you really enjoyed and you just want to experience it again.
Yeah.
Or it could be something that you want to go back and fix.
Again, I don't know that I wouldn't want to fix anything. I think because then I wouldn't be who I am. So I don't know that I want to fix anything. I think if I was going to do anything over, I would love to relive my kids' younger years because I loved them. I mean, I was always involved, but I loved those years as a young family.
Yeah. All right. Good answer. All right. Next question is, what has been your favorite role to date?
Oh, come on. You're going to put me on the spot. I got to say, I have. I've really enjoyed this one because it's been challenging, emotionally and otherwise. So this is definitely one of the top two as Daniel. I also really enjoyed the detective role that I had for that ID Network series. That was an amazing group of people to work with, and that was fun being on the law side, the police officer detective type. So those two are probably my top two.
Good. Number 6, what habits or quirks do you have that your wife Jill teases you about?
I'm glad she's not here because I'll pick the ones that aren't as embarrassing. I like to eat my sandwiches, hamburgers, and everything around the outside first. And then I eat the crust first on pizza.
Ooh, really?
I eat around the. Oh yeah, I'm yeah. So give me a sandwich. I'll eat all the crust first, and then the inside. And I'll do that with hamburgers or whatever.
Very cool. All right, final question of the interrogation. What role or character would you most like to play if you're given the option?
I had somebody ask me this. If there were a like a biblical type series, and obviously there are some out there we're very familiar with, to play Herod.
That'd be cool.
To try to be in that position, where I'm at faith wise, to try to live that out would be a huge challenge. But I think that would be really exciting. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, so you survived the interrogation.
I did.
Now comes that corny joke I made, the sage advice.
Yes.
For anyone that's looking to step up and use their gifts for God's glory, what would your wise counsel be?
Pray about it first. Make sure that your motives are right for doing it, because sometimes your gifts may not need to be used on a bigger scale. For example, singing. I like to sing. Could I pursue it more and try to really practice and get into some singing group or something? Maybe, but I know my place is just to sing like at my local church. Okay. So I guess just discerning on where those gifts maybe need to go. We get these big grandiose dreams, and maybe that's really not where he wants us. But find people that are already doing it and connect with them. See what they're doing, get their story, get their advice. And that's why, like at the beginning, I mentioned AMTC and the Shine by Carrie Lewis and the Christian Casting. find a faith-based program that deals with this type of a thing, because they'll really help you prepare for it, the right way. So, just find people that are of faith and know the industry to kind of learn and grow from, and just pray about it. Find out where he really wants you to go with it.
Yeah. And AMTC, I didn't attend. I didn't go through the program. I auditioned and actually met Jen Gotson Chandler.
Sure, yeah.
Before she was married, obviously, 9 years ago almost. And most of the members of my improv group, our improv ministry, it went through AMTC.
Sure, yeah.
So I could speak to that, how big of a gap it leaves since they ended up going under.
Right.
In 2018, I think is when.
Yeah, it's been about 3 years. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, Burke Sage, the lead actor in Honest to God. You can find all the details on the showing coming up this Thursday at honesttogodmovie.com, as well as future showings. And be sure to follow him on Facebook at HTG the Movie, and also connect with Burke at his website, burkesage.com. He's also available on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find all those links at his website, burkesage.com. Also, if you're a casting director and you're looking for this face to put in your next production, find him at burkesage.com. And he's phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to seeing Honest to God, as well as 211 and Text, all coming out soon. So, Burke, thank you so much for being on. Thanks for being a guest.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. So we will see everyone next week right here on Gifts for Glory. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Dave.